It's really great that you made it today. We're going to start in a couple of minutes, just to make sure that everyone who wants participates. So just give us a couple of moments. Okay, I hope everyone who wanted to attend made it. Once again, it's really cool that you made it and you're here today with us. It's just fantastic. Today we're going to talk, my colleague here from the mobile application department, he's going to talk about how to decide which technology to use when we're talking about mobile application development. So this is quite fascinating, and it's also going to be a small checklist. What are the milestones? What are the things that you need to concentrate on when you're deciding what technology to use? So just a quick reminder: this one is one of the episodes of a large series of webinars that we're doing. They're really fun, so check them out if you haven't. And we'll have more interesting stuff to in the future. So I really encourage you to be with us all of this time. So perhaps it's a good idea that our interlocutor, our presenter, presents himself, and I'm going to also give him the voice right now. So the floor is yours. You can start. Let me also unmute me. Wishing you a nice time. This is going to be a very interesting one. So there we go.
Thank you, Olina, for this introduction. Like she mentioned, my name is Piotr, and I'm a mobile engineer here at BinarApps. I'm mostly Android developer, but I do some flirting with Flutter, which we're going to talk about today. And yeah, thank you for coming. And today we're going to talk a little bit about what would be the best technology for your next mobile app. Or the mobile app for the business that you already have. But to start, I would like to let's think about do I really need a mobile app? So after some consideration, the short answer would be yes, you do. And it's mostly because mobile devices are so widely adopted, and almost everybody has a mobile phone, and also a lot of users use the services only in the mobile way, which can be easily deducted looking at the Facebook usage data of as of April 2020. So as you can see, people who use the Facebook service only at their laptop or desktop computer are the vast minority, and more than 3/4 of all Facebook users use Facebook only via the mobile phone. So and it's a trend in the market that everything is designed mobile first, because it's easily accessible to users, and this ease of access gives you this pleasant feeling that you want to use the service more. So what would you gain from expanding your business with a mobile app or designing a mobile app for your business? First of all, something that you cannot really put a price on, that would be the user experience, but it is really priceless. Because the better the user experience, the more user engagement, the more usage of your service, meaning that your customers are generally more happy, and you can interact them in many other ways. The important thing is also that you will get that native feel, and I think that if you ever used a web service that also have an app, that you know the difference between the usage of those two. So this native feeling is really hard to put in numbers or to grasp, but it's definitely there, and it really contributes to the user experience. Also from more technical point of view, mobile app gives you lower data usage and lower battery consumption, which is derived from it. And all in all those factors give your users a better experience, a more pleasant time interacting with your service or your app. So we have to think about, if I would create an app, what options do I have? What can I go with? And like the first thing that pops into one's head would be to go native, and that means develop an app directly for the separate app for Android and separate app for iOS. And it's generally it's the best idea you can have, because it's just the way those apps are meant to be developed, and there are tons of benefits from using that approach. We're gonna list them real quick. So first and foremost is the reliability of those apps. Just because those systems are on the market for a long time, the most of the common problems are already solved. You can really go to Stack Overflow and find almost anything from the development point of view. If you are doing like a simple app, there is anything. There is tons of materials, tons of docs you can find about almost any topic that you will stumble on when developing an app. Also, those systems being around for such a long time, and the development tools being around for such a long time, gives you the confidence that they will work as intended every time. Another key factor when implementing a native app is the security. It's not always that crucial. It really depends on the type of the app that you are developing. But if you, for instance, would like to develop a banking app or cryptocurrency wallet or anything like that, I would suggest you go in native, because I'm not saying that cross-platform solutions doesn't support security at all, but it's just way easier and way safer to just use the options given by Google or Apple, because the libraries are really well made. Also, the really important thing is the popularity of the technology. So that it kind of connects with what I said earlier about reliability. But I also mean that if you would go with one business or one developer to develop your app and you were part ways because of anything, it is really easy to find a development team for the native app. So it's easier to find the native Android developers or native iOS developers that they can pick up the project as in the state that it is, because of all those development standards that are being maintained. So right now the apps are kind of sort of written the same way or follow the same guidelines. So you can easily pick up any app that is out there and just continue with it like it's your own. And it's no surprise that native apps would give you the best performance there is. So if you are going with with an app that is doing some heavy lifting, like it does some image processing, or let's say calculates a lot of stuff for any reason whatsoever, the native app will do it the fastest, like by far. Also, the user experience, the factor that, like I said, you cannot put a price on, but it's really worth considering. The native components and views are constantly being updated, and they work really, really well, and you have tons of widgets or components to choose from and customize them to your need, and they just feel right. They just feel like they are in the right place, and they are really snappy and working really, really well. Also, you get from the developer point of view, you get ease of access to the devices, features and type of capabilities, like the sensors, Bluetooth, mentioned camera. Like again, it isn't impossible to do them in cross-platform manner, but you have to take into account that you might encounter some problems afterwards. But it's not everything is fun and games. The native apps also have the dark side, and the dark side of it is the money. Because all in all, it's the most expensive solution if you would like to develop an app natively. And that's mostly because you need, you probably want to have two apps, so one for Android and one for iOS. And that's fine, and that's a reasonable thing to do. But if you want to do them natively, you have to hire two separate developer teams. So maybe you will have to work with two different companies, and they have to cooperate with each other, and that imposes other problems. But you basically have to hire twice as many people to do the apps, more or less. But the solution to that is going hybrid with the apps. So hybrid or cross-platform you can phrase that differently. So yeah, you have some hybrid or cross-platform frameworks out there. Yeah. So first of all, let's talk about what's good in going cross-platform, because like I said, you don't have to hire 2 developer teams, so because you have only one code base. And one code base doesn't seem like a big advantage, but it really is, because you only have to maintain one piece of code, so to speak, and it has only one life cycle. So it doesn't go, you don't have the risk of apps going separate ways, right? And you have the consistency of features between the platforms. Also, something that is available in the frameworks that I will be talking about is hot reload. And I think it's really underestimated feature of cross-platform development. It is really something that native developers envy when it comes to development. Hot reload is basically the ability to update the code and see the changes almost instantly on the developed app screen. So I can change the color of the screen and see it in a second in action in real app. When doing it natively and rebuilding the whole application can take anywhere from a minute to 5, for instance, depending on your machine, the build, and the app size, and all sorts of things. Lower cost is, of course, it's the derivative of one code base and one development team, but it seems to be the case that clients, at least the ones that I encounter, seem to think that if, all right, so if I have 2 applications and I write the code once and it generates 2 applications, that means that hybrid app would be 50% cheaper, but it's never the case. I would say it's really hard to find some like stone cold data on that, but my guess would be it's 70 to 80. It's 30 to 20% lower actually, because going cross-platform or going hybrid imposes other problems that could pop in the future. And yes, like I said before, you only need one development team because you have one code base, so you have to hire half of the people. It doesn't necessarily mean that they will do the work in half of the cost, but definitely if you have to go with just one company, for instance, you don't have to find one team for Android and separate team for iOS. So you have that consistency in the team and in the features there. And yeah, so the consistency in the features also means that you have consistency in error handling. So if the bug is fixed once, it is fixed actually in the 2 apps at once. But nothing comes for free. So the hybrid apps also tend to have some issues with them. And the common issues would be that this mythical unicorn of write once works everywhere doesn't really work that way. It's really common that there are some caveats between the platforms, and you have to differentiate your code between them, or some third-party library can work on Android but not on iOS, or vice versa. It's just something that happens, and you have to take into account. Maybe not in the simple cases, but once you want to do something fancy, it will probably pop up. Lower performance than native is another thing that you have to take into consideration. It really depends what do you need and what do you expect from the app. Because if you have if your service let's say, e-commerce store or any simple data displaying web page like app, I would say that this performance gap is not that big of an issue for you. But if you start doing some fancy things like mentioned before, image processing, I would really consider the going native, even if the costs are really higher. So the stuff that I mentioned before, that fixing one error propagates this fix to both apps, is kind of a double-edged sword, because the bug you introduce in the first place is also propagated to both apps. And that doesn't happen when you have two code bases, because they have separate life cycles, right? And that happens really often, that you have to still have some native development knowledge on board, because there are some cases where you have to either develop a small plugin for the cross-platform app. So you have to go to the native side of things, implement the code there, and give yourself a way to use that code in the hybrid app. So there are often cases where you have to where the cross-platform knowledge isn't enough, and you still have to use some native developers in your team, or at least their aid in the project. The going cross-platform is also means that you are gonna be a little bit behind in respect to the newest features of what let's say Google or Apple provided for you. So let's say that you have. I think that recently I was looking for stuff for a Google Map feature in Flutter, and it turns out that okay, you can add Google Maps to your app, and there's not a problem. But if you would like to use if you would like to draw on rectangles or any kind of shapes of the map, that's not available yet. So you always have to think about that. You might be behind with some latest features, and also that you probably will be missing some capabilities of the native app. Like augmented reality is a good case. I mean, it isn't impossible. You probably can write yourself a plugin for it, or maybe there is already a plugin for it, but using another library in your project would always mean that you rely on somebody's code, and it's usually a good thing to not write everything yourself, but it may impose some problems in the future, and you don't have that level of control about it than you do with when you go native. Also, stuff that a lot of people do not take into consideration, that the support of the framework can expire. I think that happened with Cordova. That is not really, it is available, but not really supported anymore. And just there are other frameworks that took its place. So yeah, what cross-platform technologies are out there? What can I use to build a multiple platform application from a single code base? I've chosen some popular frameworks. Going from the left, we have React Native, then Ionic, Flutter, and Xamarin. But doing a quick research on Stack Overflow trends, and as well as going through the Bitrise blog, the summary of the 2019, really shows that as far as the cross-platform development world goes, there are only 2 players really left, and it's React Native and the new shining star, the Flutter. So let's talk about React Native first, because it's around for a longer time and probably more of you could have a chance to hear about it. React Native is a cross-platform framework created by Facebook, so it's really good. It's really stable and it's well known since it's around for more than 5 years, and it uses the paradigm of translating the JavaScript code into the native Android and iOS components, which can be a good thing, but not necessarily. We will talk about it in a second. So how does it work? So this little graph shows the basic principle of how React Native works, meaning that on the right side you have the native side of things, and on the left you have the React Native side of things, meaning that you're in the JavaScript realm. So basically you write your application in JavaScript, and then the code goes to the bridge, and it is translated to native widgets, which communicate with the JavaScript side, so with the logic of the app, through this bridge. So yeah, let's talk about why React Native is a good solution. First and foremost, it's written in JavaScript, so native developers tend to make jokes about JavaScript, but it's a really nice language, and its greatest strength is its popularity. So when you are looking at it from the business side, it's worth considering, because it's very likely that you can find a team that knows JavaScript already and knows React already, because I think it's most popular web framework right now. Also, it is made by Facebook, so it is backed by a reliable company that is out there and it's probably not going anywhere. And it's also used by the big players in the industry. So Facebook is written in it, Instagram is written in it, of course, because it comes from Facebook. Also Skype and Pinterest. Just a few examples of the apps that are already there. But I would assume that Facebook and Instagram, they have this, or also Skype, they have this video calls parts and stuff. So I assume they are written natively. So only the browsing, the post-browsing parts or chats are written in React Native, but probably somewhere underneath there are the native components written separately for those fancy features like adding yourself ears of a bunny or something. Also the great thing about React is, like I said, its popularity contributes to many third-party libraries that can solve your problems that you will encounter. So you can focus on writing the app, but not focus on doing some putting work in a place that you don't need to. It's open source, so it's always good, because if you're wondering how some function that you are using works, you can always go in and see and be sure how it works and not just assume that. And the framework itself, it's extremely popular. It has 88K stars on GitHub. But like I said, nothing comes for free. So React Native also has some flaws. So in comparison to native development and Flutter development, not so many components are ready for you out of the box, so you have to use either build them yourself or use third-party libraries. The UI translation into native components can impose some issues because you don't have that much of control how the elements will be displayed on the screen. So you probably have to sometimes adjust the views per platform, which kills the dream of writing stuff once and it works everywhere. Like I said, it doesn't it doesn't ever work that way. And also one big flaw is the bridge performance. So because the JavaScript code has to be transferred over the bridge and back in order to maintain the logic of the app, each transfer of those messages impose some overhead of performance, so you have to keep that in mind. But then we have Flutter. It's another framework, cross-platform framework that is been around for a year and a half or so. So it's definitely more fresh, and it's created by another big player, Google. So I would say even a bigger player. And the paradigm is kind of different because like React Native creates native components and translates JavaScript into native components. Flutter does stuff differently, so it has this graphics engine that renders every pixel on your screen. So you could think of it like a graphical sandbox that just displays stuff, other than create native widget trees. You program in Dart, which is also a language created by Google. I'm not really sure if anybody uses Dart for anything other than Flutter right now. I'm sure you can make server-side applications with it, but it's not so popular. And another stuff that is worth mentioning is that Flutter is really cross-platform, meaning you can right now write applications for Android, iOS, even the web, Linux, Windows, or Mac OS. The desktop applications, I think they are still in beta, as well as web. But I played with web a little bit, and it definitely works well. So it's something really worth exploring. Okay, so let's talk about the good side of Flutter. Like I mentioned, it's made by Google, so same principle that with React Native it probably doesn't go anywhere because it's supported by some big boy. A really big strength of Flutter is that it has a lot of customizable widgets already made for you. So building UIs is really simple. You could go to YouTube and write something like Flutter built in a day, or one day build, and you will see a lot of people just using Flutter for prototyping the UIs. So it's really easy to create rich and animated UIs with widgets that are already made. Yeah, like I said before, the UI is independent of the native components, so you are pretty sure that you'll get the same or close to the same effect on both platforms, which can be a really good thing. And Flutter has really great community, also great documentation. A lot of people write tirelessly third-party libraries. You can find them all at one place on PubDev, and they're really well maintained. And even though it has the stable release on Flutter was in December of 2018, it already has more stars on GitHub So it can measure popularity in some way. But Flutter also has some flaws. Yeah, it's still fresh. Like I said, the stable version of it has almost 1.5 years. So there are some stuff that is unexplored. There are things that cannot yet be done with it, and also the Dart programming language isn't that popular. So I would say that you cannot really find a senior Dart programmer if you would like to build your team. And that can be a problem if you would like to go to some other company with your app if you part ways, because you always have to think about the maintenance of the project in the long run. Yes, I when I was doing research for this presentation, I stumbled into this cool article on Medium, and the guy was basically comparing the performance of the mentioned frameworks compared to native. The mentioned algorithm is calculating the pi number really precisely. I think up to the millionth place after the comma, with some fancy algorithm mumbo jumbo. Basically, it's really intensive CPU work, and the results are pretty obvious, at least for me, that the React Native, because of this bridge interaction, tends to be the slowest. But it's really nice to see that Flutter, because it works in a different way and it compiles the C binaries, doesn't seem to have that much of performance overhead. So it's 4 times, even 4 times faster than React Native, and it's something close to double of the half of the speed of native solutions. So if you don't need that much of a heavy lifting, maybe that's a good compromise between those two worlds. So the question from the beginning, right? So does my business really need an app? So yeah, you probably need one, but maybe not just yet. So there is like a third option. I would say it's an intermediate option. It's a PWA. PWA, it's a progressive web app, meaning that it's a website that feels like an app. It gives you some offline functionality, so you can bundle some, I don't know, images with it, so you don't have to download them every time, which results in lower battery consumption because of the lower data usage. And it also can be added to the desktop, so it really feels like it is a mobile app, but it really isn't. If you would like to see an example of that, you can use Alibaba's page. So you can. I'm really sorry that's in Polish, but you have to trust me that it says that you can add Alibaba to your screen, and if you do, you get a little icon that if you click, you get a full screen. Let's say it's like a full screen browser experience. So it looks like a mobile app, even though it isn't. But if you don't have, if your business is just starting, or you are a startup, or maybe the mobile user experience isn't that crucial for you or for your business. So I think the e-commerce is a good is a good app to start with PWA. Maybe that's something that you can take into consideration, because if you have a website already, adapting it to PWA is definitely cheaper than hiring a new set of devs and writing everything from scratch just to have that native experience. So what do we choose? So I think listing pros and cons give you some picture, but my checklist would be I would always go native if I can. Meaning if I'm able to maintain two separate teams of developers, if I don't care about the solution being that cost efficient and I just want the best result possible, I would always go native. Or if my application tends to do some heavy lifting or tends to use a lot of device features like Bluetooth, like map navigation, like camera, like using sensors, so magnetometers or accelerometers or stuff like that, I will always go native, because it gives you opportunity to be maybe not close to the metal, but a little bit closer to the metal that you can get. But if not, if the performance of the app is not an issue for me, because I'm doing, let's say, another Facebook, another e-commerce store, another just informative site that just displays some data or interacts with users in a simple way, I would really consider going hybrid because of the lower costs. Maybe not half of the cost of developing two apps, but somewhere around 70%. Because it just makes sense. Just you have to have in mind those things that I talked about. So it can be harder to maintain in the future, or it can be harder to add some fancy features to it in the future. But generally, it's a good idea, and a lot of big businesses like Facebook, Instagram, Skype, or whatnot use that solution for their applications. Or maybe if the money is really tight and your business already has a website, because that's important, and you just want to expand a little bit into that mobile realm, I would consider PWA, so progressive web app, as a starting point for going mobile in the future, because I think that if you want to be taken like seriously in this business, you have to have an app anyway. Okay, so I guess that concludes my presentation. So now will be the time for the Q&A session, right? All right, so we have first question. I'm a civil engineering student. Let me know this webinar. How may for me help? I think the most important thing that you can get out of this webinar is maybe considering it as a guideline. If you would like to specialize yourself in programming someday, somehow, maybe there's it could be a road sign. What technology should you learn first, I would say. But other than that, I'm not sure how it will help your civil engineering career, really. All right, so is hybrid app more like two apps or one app running on two platforms? It's a good question, actually, because when it comes to the code, it is actually two apps, because you first write your common stuff and then you generate two applications out of it. So you got real Android application out of this process and real iOS application from this process. But all the logic is encapsulated in this common world. So I would say that depends on the frameworks that you choose. I'm more experienced with Flutter, and you can say that you have a one app that works everywhere instead of just two apps. But for whatever reasons, you can treat it like two apps. So if you would like to, I don't know, handle your CI in some fancy way for iOS differently than in Android is of course always possible. All right, so which among the apps you mentioned is more operable for educators to use? That's a tough one because I don't get that. I would say that if we are thinking, but let's say that I understand the question like that. What is the best technology for you as a teacher of some sort to educate others? I would say that Flutter is really handy to learning and studying programming because it gives outputs really fast and the everything is a widget concept is really easy to grasp. And the what you see is what you get paradigm really gives you keeps you satisfied when you're developing it because you see the results so fast. So I would say you should go for that one. So what kind of technology you would recommend for medium-sized e-commerce website or business? So when it comes for websites, that's not really my deal. But if I would go for an app, medium-sized e-commerce would be. I would definitely recommend something hybrid, and I would also recommend Flutter still. But I'm always gonna recommend Flutter over React Native because that's just my personal bias and because the bird is watching me. Which of these technologies will you see in long-term use in future? So if you are thinking about reliability and maintainability, the native will always be around. I think that's something that isn't really going anywhere. Just because the cross-platform frameworks have to catch them up, and they're always running away. They will always be 2 steps ahead of them. But the two frameworks that I mentioned, I've chosen them specifically because I think that from the majority of other frameworks, they will be sticking around for quite some time because they are backed by the big companies like Facebook and Google. Can you recommend what technology is the best for beginners to learn? I previously mentioned Flutter as a good tool for educating people. But if you would like to learn coding by yourself, I would either choose Flutter, but that can be a little bit tricky because it's kind of fresh and you will have to figure a lot of stuff out by yourself. So I think I would go with native development, especially for Android, because of the because you don't have to have a MacBook to start developing. And the baseline of Android is Java, and Java is around for forever. And you have tons of materials so that you can start learning programming. First the programming in Java, then framework specific stuff for Android. Okay, I think we have another question coming up. Yes. Which one is more strong nowadays, according to your knowledge, creating mobile app or using existing apps for marketing or online shopping? All right. So when it comes to the choosing of the technology, I would say that you can go with Flutter or React Native for online shopping or online businesses like that, just because they do not need that much performance. You don't need to use that much device specific things, and you can your time to market will be faster. That's for sure than going natively. But just maybe if your business is really mobile oriented, so I don't know, maybe Tinder is a good example of that, because you use it mainly on your mobile phone. So maybe that way, maybe in that manner, you should consider going native anyway. Okay, so I think that was the last question. So thank you very much, guys, for your attention, and see you on other webinars.
Okay, guys. Wow, lots of questions. Actually, it's really wonderful that you posted them all. If you have any questions on the topic, don't forget that you can always text us, because we're really tech geeks, so we know a lot of stuff about it. So, by the way, all of this presentation will also be available online. So you'll also have a link for that. So it's recorded. And another one is that we are going to have more funny and interesting things upcoming, because we're working off other series. So keep in touch if you want to go deeper into IT world. Yes, I see that's another question. How we can join another seminar from your site? Actually, if you found, just give me a second. My colleague is going to revert on chat for this. But actually, just a suggestion. You can always seek for the group. So you're posted. The webinars are posted on our Facebook page, other Facebook pages. We have it on LinkedIn. So it's like a lot of campaigns. So the safest way is just to go on our Facebook page, or on the page that you found this webinar. So it's like this. Perfect. But if you have any questions at all, we're always welcome them. For example, on our Facebook channel, or you can text us. Just mail us. It will be fun. Yep. Thank you. So my colleague has pasted it. Perfect. Thank you very much. So without further ado, then keep cool. Thank you, Piotr, very much for this presentation. I truly believe that it was very, very knowledgeable for everyone. So thanks, you're cool. The feedback link. Will there be a feedback link? Yeah, there will be a feedback link after the event. So please feel free. I see people also typing stuff. Okay, thanks, perfect. Okay, so Piotr, once again, thank you. big bravos for you. And thank you guys for being here with us. Take care. Bye. Stay cool.